Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Debby Montgomery Johnson.
Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with.
I am Roy Miller. I am that guy from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So we're pleased to have in this episode Debby Montgomery Johnson, and she owns a company called Benfo Complete, and she's also a victims advocate. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm really excited to join you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
My company is a vitamin supplement company. We're online retail and wholesale with doctors, particularly podiatrists, chiropractors, those kinds of things. We have a vitamin supplement that reduces or alleviates the pain, pins and needles of neuropathy, typically folks with diabetes or those who've had chemotherapy are affected by that.
Great. Were you going to say something, Lorianne?
Oh, no, I was going to say I've been in the business since 2003. We were the first company in the United States to bring the vitamin supplement benfotiamine to the American public, and it's a synthetic form of vitamin B1.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic. So you've had quite a diverse background, though, from wanting to be, I guess, in the medical, and then you went into the Army.
Air Force.
I was actually Air Force.
Air Force, sorry.
That's okay.
And do you want to give us a little bit of a background on yourself? That'd be great.
Sure. I grew up in Vermont and ended up graduating from University of North Carolina down in Chapel Hill. After that, I wanted to be in the law field, the legal field, so I actually went to paralegal school and I worked in Denver as a paralegal for a few years. And then my brother was in the Air Force, and he said, you know what, you might look into going into the Air Force. It was a great way I was single at the time, great way to meet men and travel the world. So I joined the Air Force and went in as an intelligence officer, ended back up in Denver, and met my future husband, who was a missile launch officer from Montana, but he was a German linguist, so he transferred into Intel, and we met there. And he's the one that actually started the company. After he got out of the Air Force 14 years in, he decided he did have diabetes, he did have neuropathy, he wanted something other than drug treatments. And so he did a lot of research and found benfotiamine being sold in Germany and Japan, and said, I think I could bring it to the States. And that's how it started. I actually stayed in the Air Force for 8 years and then got out to raise our children. We have 4 kids, and they're grown now. So now I have 4 grandchildren, which is even better. And so it was interesting to have him run the company out of the house. You talk about entrepreneurs. He took a little bit of a risk and took a line of credit out on the house without telling me. I'm more of the conservative kind, might not have bought off on that, but it turned out to be an extraordinary venture for him and for our family. And that was the main income producer, which allowed me to leave banking and the stress of commercial banking and go work at a school district as a treasurer, and then stay home with the kids for 11 years, which was a great experience for me.
So it says you worked in the Pentagon and you were part of the DIA as well?
Yeah, but I'm not sure I can tell you that. No,
I'm just saying though. I mean, but
I did. I started my Air Force career outside of the schooling. I ended up in Washington, D.C., working for Defense Intelligence Agency as an Air Force asset. And then my journey in Washington took me over to the Pentagon. I worked for them at the Pentagon. And then I went over to Germany. We lived in Germany for 3 years. I ran a photo lab in Wiesbaden, Germany, until the wall went down and they sent everybody home. But it was an extraordinary experience. I learned a lot from the military, learned a lot about myself. But when I came home, I was pregnant with my 3rd child, had my 2nd one over there. And I sat down with the general that I worked for, and I said, you know what, sir, I've decided I need to stay home with my family. I'm raising my kids. And he closed his big book and he said, Deb, the Air Force will miss you, but you'll change the life of a generation. And it's really important what you're doing. And it was one of the most important, scary things I'd ever done, because we went down to one salary, and living in Washington, D.C. on one salary was pretty daunting, but it was probably the most worthwhile thing that I've done. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, the Pentagon, the DIA, that's wow.
Well trained. That's the one thing I like to say, especially when we get into my other story, I was well trained, I was well educated, and had some great experiences in work.
When you said your husband, when he was doing his research, he looked at Japan and Germany. When he decided to bring that to the U.S., what kind of hurdles and hoops did he have to jump through to do that?
It was huge because we did not have a transport company that would bring it in. A vitamin supplement is not FDA, doesn't have to go through any FDA testing or any of that kind of thing. But when you go through customs, you have to get FDA clearances. So we had a variety of issues. We tried to do it through some different suppliers, and it got stuck. It got stuck in customs. It got stuck on FDA approvals. Finally, when Luke did pass away, he passed away in 2010. And as I was taking over, I found companies, suppliers, that would bring it into the United States. They would do it for me. It was a little more expensive. And just to give you an idea, benfotiamine, vitamin C runs about $9 a kilo. Benfotiamine is $130 a kilo. It's a very expensive supplement, but it's very good. So I wanted to have the best quality, to continue bringing the best quality product into the States, but I didn't want the hassle of importing it. So I actually went through a supplier and have a couple of them available to me now, which that was really important because I couldn't get it through systematically by myself.
Yeah. I would have thought the FDA would have been involved in. We had testing, show us the documentation, because there's a lot of red tape here.
Oh yeah.
In the U.S., especially with FDA and that kind of stuff.
Well, we bring it in from overseas, so we have to have certificates of analysis. You have to have it done before the product even gets here, and then when the product goes into production, there's extensive testing that we do, and post-production too, to make sure that we've got the quality of the stuff in it that we say we do, and that's very important with supplements. So the FDA gets involved, but not really. They can't say yay or nay. They're mostly dealing with drugs right now.
Mm-hmm.
Lou tried to get it in as he did an NDI, which is a non-dietary ingredient. He tried to get them to do that. It's extensive testing and information, and they came back and they basically said, it seems to be safe. We don't want to get involved in it. We can't say yay or nay, and I'm not going to push that issue. But he always told me, keep it under the radar. Just keep quiet. Because we had some really good clients, and because we were the only ones selling it, it was word of mouth. We got a couple of doctors selling it. But over the years, I have that little voice in the back of my head saying, keep it under the radar, keep it under. Well, bigger companies heard about it. And I'm thinking, if I keep it under the radar, I'm going to get sunk. And you think about your competition and all that kind of stuff. But then I'm like, you know what? There's 29 million diabetics. I only want 1 million. I'll take 2,500. That'll keep me in business. So I realized that I don't have to worry about the competition. It's there. I need to make the best quality product that I can. My dad, Dr. Jack, works for me, and we concentrate on the best customer service care that we can give. And that's the thing. We're a small, veteran-owned, woman-owned company, and we're small. I'm not trying to compete with the Doctor's Bests of the world, but I do have iHerb on my side. I have other supplement companies that purchase from us, and we give them the best we can. And the thing I caution people is when you're looking at benfotiamine or other products, you're like, oh, I can find it for $4.99 a bottle. I said, apples to oranges here. You got to do apples to apples. It has to have the same dosage, it has to have the same milligrams, the same quality. It's like with anything. You get what you pay for, and we try to we're not the highest priced, we're not the lowest priced, but we're consistent. And I'm very conscious of people that are on fixed incomes, that are veterans, that I'm not making $1 million off of this, but Dad and I do have our clients' best interest at heart when we're putting together the products.
That's wonderful. So how was it transitioning from, you said when your husband passed away, basically you took over. Tell us a little bit about that transition over.
Well, there was no transition. He was here today, he was dead tomorrow. Literally, he had not been sick. His diabetes and neuropathy and all that were under control. He left here on a Wednesday afternoon. Thursday morning, I went to a school district meeting, end of the year meeting. At the first break, about 10 o'clock in the morning, I looked at my phone because my phone was off, and it was blown up with messages. And the first one was from my oldest son, who was only 23 at the time. And he said, Mom, Dad just died. I'm coming home to take care of everything. And I heard that and I listened to it. And then I listened to the next ones. It was my mother and dad calling. It was the hospital calling. They were all trying to get a hold of me to tell me what was going on. I'm thinking, he just left yesterday. I just said goodbye to him. And I never saw him after that. My parents took care of everything. And so that was really daunting because I was thrown into survival mode, keep the company, figure out how to run the company. But the first thing that came to my mind, especially with social media, was I have to get to my 15-year-old before someone on Facebook says his dad died.
Yeah.
And that was extraordinary. I went into autopilot, and by the time I got home from the meeting, well, it was within a half hour, someone brought me home. Neighbors had heard about it. People were showing up at the door, and then the funeral, all the funeral things that had to go together. And I mentioned to you briefly that 2 months before Lou died, now he didn't have any indication he was going to pass away. He canceled his life insurance. And you go, why would he do that? We've been paying for 30 years. He went from one age group to another. So his premium went from $100 a month to $500 a month. He didn't want to pay that. He figured we have investments, we've got all these things. And my mind's going, I have 4 children, someone's going to get hurt. We can't do this. I actually extended it for a month or 2 until he saw it coming out of my bank account, and he blew a cork. So he canceled it. And when he canceled it, now he dies 2 months later, and I'm thinking, shoot, I have the company, but I don't have any backup money, even though he said we had investments. We did, but they were long-term. It was not something I could access right away. So that was the most frightening, I think, for me. And my father's like, well, call the insurance company. They'll help you out. I'm like, Dad, Lou made such a big deal about this. There's probably some big X on our file that even if I were to pay back the premiums, they are not going to give me insurance. Yeah. So that and trying to figure out how to run the company was daunting. And I didn't transition. I got thrown into it. And I literally slept 4 hours a night from midnight to about 4 o'clock. And that was hard too, because that was the only time I could, what I say, drop my mask and cry and get mad at Lou. How to get mad at someone for dying? But I got mad because he didn't leave me the passwords. He didn't leave me the operating instructions. All these things I had to figure out on my own. And then I had to figure out that the bed wasn't moving. The sheets weren't moving. It was me, by myself. And that was very, very difficult.
It's interesting you mentioned passwords and stuff. People don't think about that. They really don't. But so what my wife and I did, we have in our safe deposit box, we have a folder that's got all of our passwords in it. And we told the kids, go to the safe deposit box, get the password folder, first thing to do, because that gives you access to all of our stuff.
Just keep it updated.
Yeah, we do. Every time we stick another piece of paper in there or whatever. But really.
Yeah, I have a little book. It's called Password. And I write that in there. I gave it to my father because he likes to take the 8.5 by 11 yellow pad of paper and the cardboard on the back. And he uses up the sheet. He starts writing all his passwords there. I'm like, Dad, this is no good. Keep it in one little book, but make sure that it's protected, because I have worked with women who had those books. They had men that they fell in love with. One in particular, she was going to marry him. He ended up wiping out her accounts because he had access to all of her passwords. So you want to really be careful where you have those passports or passbooks. And I know that you've got yours in your safe, but just be careful where you keep them stored.
Yeah. So can we go back a little bit to your book and your financial disaster, I guess?
My story? Well, again, it was all based on Lou dying. And 6 months into it, I was working literally 20 hours a day. And my girlfriend said, Deb, you need to get a life. You need to do something other than work. And I worked from home at that point, and I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I wasn't a partier, I didn't, go dancing and all that kind of fun Texas stuff. I was a grandma, I was a mom. Well, I guess I wasn't a grandma at the time, I was a mom. And I loved being home. And I hadn't had to date since I was 26. So at 52, the thought of dating was daunting, and all the anxiety of 15 and 16 came out again. You're not pretty enough, smart enough, skinny enough, all those things. In spite of my background, I had, And I also didn't want somebody in person yet. I wasn't ready for a physical relationship. So online dating seemed safe. I used to call it stalking. I could go and I could look at the profiles. I could look at what they would say and write, and I could figure out for myself if it was good. I was very hard on myself. I wanted my own profile to be perfect. I didn't want to show up with any baggage. But I also put down that I was a widow. Well, you never do that. There are a lot of things I did learn. So a few weeks into it, there were some yicky ones, and I realized that the men that were showing up over 55 were lying about their age. They were showing up in the wife beater t-shirts, which you might appreciate. They had the motorcycles, but they also had other women hanging on them. And I'm like, this is not who I want. My husband had been brilliant and bold and, just a good looking tall guy. And so I didn't want just anybody. And when I was contacted by an international businessman from London, good looking guy, had lost his wife, had a son, I'm thinking, you know what, this might be interesting. The international business kind of sparked my interest because of our company, and him being gone was also safe for me because we could have a friendship, and throughout the whole thing, I have 4,000 pages of journal. It was an amazing adventure, which I thought would be family history of us getting together and all these things. Turned out not to be family history, but it was an extraordinary adventure. And here's the thing, he was an international businessman. He was in Houston at the time, and he had gotten a job that would be taking him from Houston over to Malaysia. He was a contractor for an international company. They moved hardwood trees around the world. I had investments in trees in Costa Rica. He did not know that. There's no record of that. So he gave me the website. I checked out the website. He gave me all these things, his attorney, you name it. I did my due diligence as I thought, because I expected people to be transparent and trustworthy. I was. And I'd only heard, even my mom said one of her best friends married the man she met online. So I'd only heard the great stories about online dating. And again, because I went to a faith-based site, I thought it would be safe, be a good place to start. And what I didn't realize is that a few weeks into it, he said, look, I'm going overseas. Can you move over to Yahoo Chat and off the dating site? I'm like, sure, I didn't know anything about Yahoo Chat. It's instant messaging. I don't even know if they still have it. But it was extraordinary because even when he was in Malaysia or Hong Kong or India or wherever, we could get online, maybe middle of the night, and we'd be texting back and forth. It'd be instantaneous chatting. It was extraordinary. And so like I said, I had 4,000 pages. We did a lot of writing, which was very therapeutic for me. If I had any therapy, it was with him, because I could tell him about the company and we would talk about business. I could tell him about the frustrations I was having with my youngest son and boys at 15, and how I felt about Lou dying, because I knew that his wife had passed away. So I figured we could chat about the same things. It was interesting adventure, which came down burning and crashing and burning 2 years into it. And that's, most people know the story because I call it the woman behind the smile. And it's the ultimate betrayal of online dating, for online dating. I did lose a lot of money in this thing, but the way it happened is that he came online that morning in Yahoo Chat and said, Deb, how do you feel about forgiveness? So I put on my scriptural hat and we started yakking, and for hours we wrote back and forth about forgiveness. And then I got disconnected, which was not unusual. Came back, same conversation, and I finally said, Eric, have I done something wrong? Why are we talking about forgiveness? He said, I have something to tell you. It's going to hurt you. I need for you to forgive me. And at that point, I'm thinking, why tell me? He says, I have a confession to make. And at that, again, I'd heard that once in my marriage. I'd been married 26 years. I didn't like what I heard back then. And I said, you really don't have to tell me. He goes, I have to tell you this. It has all been a scam. Well, you can imagine my heart at that point is just racing, saying, are you sick? What is wrong? You're lying, all these different things. He goes, no, this is the truth. I said, then prove to me that this has all been a lie. And he said, on Yahoo Chat, there's a camera function, and I'm going to walk you through how to get on it. And he did. So imagine I have dual screens. I'm looking at my handsome Brett, and in the corner of my screen comes up this little camera, and I'm looking now at a dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned young man with a big smile on his face. And I'm thinking, holy moly, what have I done? And in an instant, this was a gift from God. In an instant, my heart got separated from the story, and I picked up my phone and I took a picture of him. And I've got that picture in my book, which is called The Woman Behind the Smile. It's the only picture I have of him in a real life picture of him. And I use that now because in my work today as a victim's advocate and survivor, most people do not ever get to see their scammer. And so when the scammer goes away, if Eric had just dropped off the face of the earth, I would have thought that it was worse than Lou dying, because now I had given him a lot of money, which I didn't have. I found it, but I didn't have it in the bank account. And it was awful. And then my mind started going, how can I catch him? I have to keep him involved. I can go to the FBI. I watch TV. I know they can stop these guys. And so I did keep him engaged for a while. But the next day I called my parents. Here's the worst part of it. The scammers will ask you to obviously give them as much money as you can. And when you don't have any more, they say, well, who do you know? Who can help you? Because, once we get this done, I'm going to be there. So I contacted my parents and they gave me $100,000. I wish they hadn't, but they did, because I'm their daughter and they love me and we're family. So as soon as the scam hit, I was like, how can I get that money back? What am I going to do? So my mom and dad came over. We went to the FBI, and the FBI in Palm Beach County, where I live, said, Deb, first thing, we're very sorry. Second, we can't do anything for you because unless you get him here to the United States, we can't go after him. And third, more men get taken for over $1 million in Palm Beach County than women, and they'll never tell. You can imagine why. They're embarrassed. They're afraid. Could have been a guy behind the woman's picture. I mean, there's so much to it. And when they said they couldn't help me, that mask just went up. And then I didn't tell anybody my story for quite a while because I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a smart woman. You're one of those damn Yankees. How could you give so much money away? And that's what victims go through. And then if you go to report it and law enforcement is basically giving you the stink eye and they're like, that was really stupid of you. That's when the victim blame hits, and that it's just an awful feeling. Family members, my older boys, when they found out about it, they became unglued because they felt like, Mom, you didn't trust us, you didn't listen to us, and I didn't. When they kept saying, Mom, don't, I'm like, hey, I'm the adult, leave me alone. And I shut them off. Scammers want you to do that. They want to isolate you from your friends and family because then they're in your head and in your heart. And that's what happened. And I had a lot of humble pie after the fact to explain to the kids what had happened. But I said, boys, I'm not doing this coming out to embarrass any of you. I'm coming out because if my story can prevent it for one person, then it's worth it. Because if you can't prevent it at the beginning, you can't do anything about it until they're at the end, and then they're crashing and burning and they're out of money. They could have lost family. They could have lost a home. They lost their investments. It leads to depression, leads to suicide. It's awful. And it's something that just really quickly, I said, 30 years ago, if you walked into a police department with a black eye, they would say, go home and be nice to your husband. You walk in with a black eye today and they go in and arrest the person immediately. Where we are now with reporting online scam, you walk in and you have to get a report. They cannot get your money back. They can't do anything, but with a report, an official report. There are some states where you can get victims assistance, you can get therapy, you can get rent assistance. There are things that can help you, but it's the start to your recovery. And it's a hard road to go. Now, I do work with a great organization. I'm on their board. It's called the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, or SCARS. It's international in scope. It's out of Miami. And I've basically become the spokeswoman for it because I'm the face of the victim. The founder is an older white man, and I laugh. I said, he's got incredible information. I said, Tim, you're not the face of the victim. When we have something happen to us, we need someone that we can relate to that's been through it, that can hold our hand. This is true with any kind of fraud, anything that happens to us. If there's somebody else out there that's been through it and they speak up about it, then you don't feel alone. And that's my mission right now, is to speak up, because too many people this has happened to, but they're never going to talk about it because they fear of losing their jobs. I had a woman this morning that we're talking to National Geographic on Saturday. She goes, I can't tell them who I am. I can't tell them all the specifics because I could lose my job. Brilliant woman. I'm talking doctors, lawyers, investment people, unbelievably well-trained, well-financed people that have hit a point in their lives where there might have been a divorce or a death, and they're just vulnerable. And the scammers are trained in universities in Nigeria on the art of scamming. They are salesmen who know how to get the money, and they're good at it. And what took 2 years for me, they're now doing in 3 or 4 months. They've upped their game. They've not gone on vacation because of the pandemic. They are out in full force. And you name it, kind of a scam, it's hitting every age group. And that's the problem that we're running into right now. So I thank you guys for making people aware of this. I really do thank you.
And you're absolutely right too, because I know of 2 of my friends. One of them, I keep telling her, just stop it. The other one was a few years ago, the same thing, Nigerian. They told her, send us money, and then you've got Western Union. I say, you hear that word, Western Union, you run the other way. I'm sorry, but you just do. And I warned her, she sent the money anyway, never saw anything out of it. But I can't tell you how many times. There's a plane crash. Did you check up on the plane crash? Obviously, it will be in the news if there's a plane crash in Mexico. There was none. Those are the things they don't want to believe, even when you give them all the statistics. No.
There's no, same thing with me. Once you get sucked in, once you are in it, it's very difficult to get your brain out of it, because we call it the amygdala hijack. You're not brainwashed. In some ways you are, but you just want it. It's confirmation bias. You want it so badly in your heart. You want this to be true. There were, I call them pink flags. They weren't red flags for me, because every time I found something that didn't add up, I would ask him, I'm like, Eric, why did the package come back, or why did the letter come back? And he would always have a plausible answer. And at that point, I had never heard of scam. I did not have any reason not to trust him. But when he did say at the end, can we keep this going? I'm thinking, are you out of your freaking mind? I said, not on your life. And he thought it was because he was young and black. And I'm like, no, it's because you lied to me.
Yeah.
If I had known that he needed help with his family, I might have helped him, not $2 million, but I'm a very giving person, or I was. But that trust, when my trust factor got ripped out, that was very difficult for me, because I like to trust people.
And that's going forward now, right? Where you were open and all. Now it's kind of like you're questioning everything to the nth degree.
I do, because there's so much scam out there. And for business people, it's the BEC, business email compromise. It's a huge scam. And it's those emails coming in from presidents of companies that, they're going to their CFO or their accounts payable saying, Friday afternoon, 4:45, pay this bill by wire immediately, $100,000, blah, blah, blah. And you think it's from the boss. And so you do it and you call them back or whatever and say, hey, I sent the wire. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's very difficult to get that big money out. And before the pandemic, this was huge. And Barbara Corcoran of the Shark Tank, her company got taken. The governor of Florida, his wife was, not the previous governor, his wife was taken for $600,000. Their companies got hacked, because if the scammers can get 100 or 2 or 300,000 out of one company, one email, it's a lot better than getting $250 out of 5,000 romance victims. But today, the scammers are everywhere, and it's not just online dating sites. It's Words with Games, it's Google Hangouts, it's LinkedIn, Facebook, every platform, every email. If you think about your emails that come in, I get stuff from American Express. Your account is whatever. I don't even have an American Express account. So, but the Bank of America ones, I never click on links. If I have a problem, I will go to the website. My father, 91 years old, Dad knows all about this stuff because I've drilled into his head. He got 5 phone calls from Amazon last week. Amazon does not call you. But he's like, Deb, they're saying that I owe the $700 isn't going through. I'm like, Pop, let's look at your account. Did you buy anything for $700? No. Then don't answer the phone. Because all they want you to do is push that number 7 and ding, you got the scammer on the line. So it's just a matter of educating people as to what's up there. The IRS calls you, scared to death, you run out and get Western Union or bank cards. IRS does not call you. That was a huge Indian scam, and my IT guy is in India. He goes, yeah, they rounded up a call center full of people. Unfortunately, the guy that was the brains behind it escaped. He's in Dubai or somewhere. But if someone asks for money, do not give it to them. Right now, even if it's family, I'm like, time out. Let's take a break. Let's figure this out. But scammers are very persistent, and they're going to say this is urgent. It's the grandparent scheme. A lot of our ages, they'll call up and say, "Grandma, don't tell mom, but I've been hurt. I need money. Go send it to me." Blah 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 blah. And it's a scam, and it's very secretive and it's very fast. They want to rush you into it, and when you get hijacked like that, you're not thinking. It's that shiny object syndrome. It's like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Well, I heard someone the other day said, remember our grandmothers used to say, sleep on it? Sleep on it. Give it some time. Settle down a little bit and then see if it's really true. It's like buying something new. If you don't really need it, don't buy it right then. Go tomorrow and buy it. There's a lot wrapped up into this whole story, but it really comes down to prevention. Be careful of your social profiles, your pictures. I don't put any pictures of my grandkids out anymore. My kids didn't want me to do it, and I'm thinking, oh, they're my grandkids. But then when I see what they're doing with those pictures, I'm like, oh, no. If my kids want to share, fine, but I don't share that stuff.
Right.
My stuff is public only because of the work I'm doing, but most of the women I talk with, check your privacy settings, and don't let people have access to your friends list. Is one real quick thing is they will try to infiltrate a women's group or a business group by becoming friends with one person. Well, now they're mutual friends. So trusting, I see a friend request, it comes in, it's got mutual friends. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll click on it. Well, I won't, because I will check them out and then I'll call my friends and say, hey, your accounts have been hacked. Get these people out of your accounts. But we're too trusting when we see that we have a mutual friend.
Yeah.
Really scrutinize that.
I check them all the time. Just quickly speaking of that too, my mother's 86. She got a call the other day, not long ago. And the voice sounded familiar. And of course, my mother just said, hey, Milton, is this you? And then of course, the conversation went on. The guy just went on with it. And I need $3,000, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, well, why is your number from Calgary? And she just went on asking him questions. So she says, no, I can't send you anything. Hangs up and calls our friend. And of course, it wasn't him. But at least, luckily, she picked up on that. She wouldn't have sent the money anyway, unless she did make a phone call to confirm. But it was just amazing how smart they were in getting the details out of you to make it sound like they knew the details.
Absolutely, because you're giving them the information. As she said, Wilson, it's you. He said, yeah, of course it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's that your amygdala gets hijacked because you hear it in grandmothers. If I had something wrong with one of my kids are little, but if they were older, I would immediately think, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Now, when they say don't call your mom, one of my girlfriends, my next door neighbor, they called her older aunt. Her aunt is in her late 90s, and it was my friend's daughter, or my friend's son. I said, Aunt Mary, don't tell my mom. But fortunately, there was a neighbor in the house, and she heard it. She goes, you have to call Dee now. And she did. And it was a scam. So, but I've heard of people that have lost tens of thousands of dollars by running to the bank to do it.
So Debbie, how can our people reach out to you?
Go to my website, The Woman Behind the Smile. And you can, if you know anybody that has been a victim or needs to talk to someone, they can email me at Debby, D-E-B-B-Y, at thewomanbehindthesmile.com. Excuse me. Or they can go to, if they have been a victim, go to romancescamsnow.com and get in touch with SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. I can also find that through my website. It's just really important to get the word out and to find out how this affects millions of people every day. So,
like you said, not just financially, but emotionally and mentally too. That's the big thing that you have to understand. It goes beyond the money.
And you will have to, maybe go through some therapy or whatever. All of us need to be doing that anyway. Or there's a lot of mental health issues. But I grew up being very, not afraid, but it's like thinking, I don't need to talk to anybody. I didn't talk to anybody after Lou died, and I should have. And I'm not going to shoulda, coulda myself to death. But, there are the stages of grief that I didn't go through because I was thrown into running his business. And I probably, took some of that out. I said, Eric was my greatest therapy. And one of my therapist friends said, well, I could have done it for less than $1 million. But I do a lot of writing now. And that's really important, getting your story written out. You have to release the emotions of it. And that's a first step to healing. And we can help you with that.
That's
Right.
beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It was a pleasure to meet you, Debbie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you helping get the message out. I can't do it alone. I can only do it with help. And you'll touch people that I can't get a hold of. And we only have to hit one person to make it worth it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you as well.
We're glad
Take
we
care.
could help.
Okay, you too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.